Hello everyone, welcome to another Python tutorial series. When I browse through Python forums, I often see people ask about classes, objects, object-oriented programming, or OOP. These are not just beginners and a lot of people using Python for a long time included. So the typical questions include, why do I need object-oriented programming? And I've not ever used it, and I seem okay. When should we decide to use object-oriented programming? And how do we decide when to use object-oriented programming and when to use functions? Well, I'll try to answer these questions based on my own experience and understanding. So you'll be better off using object-oriented programming when you want to create objects. The keywords are create objects, and this will easily differentiate object-oriented programming from functions or procedural programming. So the purpose of a function is to perform some tasks, such as printing a message, doing some data analysis, and math calculations. It's not intended to do more than that, and if you want to do something like that, just use functions. If, however, you want to create objects, especially when you want to create more than one object, then you should use object-oriented programming. And then when I look at the tutorials that people put online, I find that most of them will use similar examples to talk about object-oriented programming, and it is either people with different names and occupations, dogs with different breeds and activities, or cars with different colors and brands. And it's often confusing for a lot of beginners. So I've decided that in this tutorial video, I'm going to do something different and use graphic animations to talk about object-oriented programming. This way, people will be able to see the objects that they have created, and I hope it is easier to understand for beginners. And please note that this tutorial video does not intend to give full coverage of object-oriented programming and only serves as an introduction. So we can use different packages to make animations such as Turtle, Pygame, and Yersina. So in this video I choose Turtle because it comes with the Python installation and you don't need to install it separately like Pygame or Yersina engine. Also, it is, I think, easier than Pygame and Yersina. So for anyone that is already familiar with Turtle, it should be easy to follow along. And even if you don't have experience, it's no problem because that is not a requirement for this tutorial. So we mainly use it as a tool to talk about object-oriented programming, so we don't need all the fancy features in Pygame and Yersina engine. So let's get started. First of all, let's import the Turtle module and then create a window. So we can import Turtle in our Python file. I'm going to create a width variable equal to 700 and a height variable equal to 500. I capitalize these because they're going to be constant variables. I'm going to have a screen, so s is equal to turtle.screen, and here I'm just setting up my window. So I'll set up the window with the width and height variables as the dimensions, and I'll set the title to learn OOP through graphics. Now I'll add in a main loop. And now if I run this, let's see, this should be, s.main loop. So now if I run this, I just created a window, or basically a canvas, for us to develop our animations. So now we can create 4 objects in this animation with different shapes, colors, initial positions, and a heading, and moving speed. And this will be a typical object-oriented programming problem. So to create our objects, we first need to create a class. And a class is like a template or a blueprint for the objects. And it will basically contain all of the attributes or properties that the objects will have. So I can first create a class. So create a class. And so this will be a class of shape. Here the class is a keyword for creating a class, and so we must have it. And shape is going to be the class name. So traditionally the first letter of a class name is capitalized. And then we have the colon. So now we can define the init function, and the init function or method is a class, or is a function in a class that can initialize the variables of an object. So unlike other methods in a class, the init method is called automatically every single time the class is being used to create a new object. So we don't need to call it in order to use it. So we can have define init with parameters of self, shape, color, x, y, heading, and speed. So here we have two underscores before and after the init, and just like a function, the class body needs to be indented. So in the init method, the first parameter is always self, and the self represents the instance of the class. So by using the self keyword, we can access the attributes and methods of the class in Python. Shape, color, x, y, heading, speed are all the parameters to be passed to the variables in the init methods. So just like parameters to be passed to functions. So now we can create our variables. I'll set my size equal to 2, self.t equal to turtle.pen, self.t.shape, size, set it with the size. And here I set self.t equal to a pen, so that's going to be the pen that we draw for each instance. And now this shape size is going to be essentially the size for the instance. Now self.t.shape, the shape, I'm giving the pen a shape. Self.t.color with the color. Now I'm setting a color. And then I'm going to just pull the pen up. And now I'm setting the initial position. And setting the initial heading. And now I'm just going to set the initial speed. So this is going to be the moving speed. So there are two types of variables in a class. The class variables and instance variables. The class variables belong to the class and don't depend on each instance. For example, for each instance created, the class variables will always have the same values, and here the size is the class variable. And for each instance created, the value is always 2. So the rest, including shape, color, x, y, heading, and speed, are all instance variables because for each instance, the values are different. So for an instance variable, we need add self before it. For example, instead of typing t.setPosition of x, y, we need to type self.t.self position x, y. Instead of typing speed is equal to speed, we need to type self.speed is equal to speed. But we don't need to do this for size because size is a class variable. So we could just write size is equal to 2 instead of self.size is equal to 2. With our class created, we can use it to create our objects from it. So each object is an instance of a class, and we can create as many objects as we want. So in this video, we're just going to create 4. When we create an object, we need to give the argument that will be passed to the init method in the class to initialize the object. So to create our objects, I'm going to go down here and have an object 1 equal to shape with our values turtle, red, -100, -100, 0, 5. Object 2 equals to a shape, circle, green, -100, 100, 90, 10. Object 3, this should be object 2, is equal to shape, square, blue, 100, -100, 183. Object 4 is equal to shape, triangle, black, 100, 100, 270, and 8. So when we run, we could see that, or if I run this, let's see, shape takes no argument. Class of shape, define init. There should only be 2 underscores after the init. Let's see, this should be turtle.pen. So now when I run this, you can see that we've created 4 objects with different shapes, colors, initial positions, and headings. So it would not be an animation if the objects were not moving. So now we can create a method in the class to do that. Any method in the class will have at least one parameter, which is self, and we'll use it to access variables in the class. So what I can do is I will create a move method with a parameter of self, and I'll set self.t.forward with the speed. So now we just create a method named move, and this method will just move the object forward with the speed of self.speed. And like a function, we need to call the method in order to use it. So we could do this in a while loop because we want the objects to keep moving. And to call the function, we simply type the object name, and then a dot, and then the method name. So that's how we access the other attributes of an object. So I'll create a while loop, while true, object1.move, object2.move, object3.move, object4.move. And now if I run this, now you can see that all 4 objects are moving forward with different speeds towards their heading direction. So the objects eventually will move out the window and disappear, and to make sure that they are always in the window, we can add in some boundary checking, and we can do this in the move method. So inside this move method, I can check if the absolute value of self.t.x coordinate, if it's greater than or equal to width divided by 2, or the absolute value of self.t.y coordinate is greater than or equal to the height divided by 2. Then I'll set self.speed to the negative version. So I'm going to multiply it by -1, which will just mean it moves the opposite direction. So if I run this, now what happens is that the objects won't be able to move out of the screen, and so when it hits a boundary, it's just going to turn back. So this is the end of this video. If you have any comments, please put them below at the comment section. If you have not subscribed to your channel, please hit the subscribe button below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.